some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
Mikula the Kind spoke of the beginning. The seduction and the betrayal. An affair from which gold arose. And so too was Shadow born. What followed was a war unseen.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
You're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a tarnished favorite.
And we're back, baby, for now. The DLC is out. We have beaten it. And paradoxically, having beaten it, we're here for first impressions.
Yes, it's our first and last impression. We like to take in the whole thing before first impression.
Mm-hmm.
That's not actually true. We just budgeted a lot of time to beat it.
Yes.
Because we need to plan out the season.
We do.
Which, we're here to talk about a little bit. We're also here to talk about first impressions, and just kind of prep everybody to get back in.
Yeah.
There.
This is going to be unstructured. It's probably also going to be shorter than a regular episode. And we're going to do our best not to spoil anything, but everybody's definition of what is a spoiler is different. We cannot talk about the game without talking about the game. So no end game revelations here, but I don't know, the premise and the setup.
Yeah, some setup. And I would say I think almost no proper nouns is probably fair.
Yeah.
As a thing, things about the story, descriptors without saying the story, things about the levels and the game without saying what you actually do.
Yeah.
Feels fair to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get into the first proper episode, one of the things I want to do, because I want to do it for myself, and this is part of the influence of Real Lich Hours, is dig real deep into the new mechanic parts.
Yes.
And actually address how they work. So the kind of episode 1 that we usually do that's kind of a guide episode is still coming, because I would say the first impression is that this is basically as big as Dark Souls. It is Elden Ring 1.5. It's not really a DLC in any way that they've done before.
Right.
It's huge. It's bigger than anything they've done. It's I would say it's bigger than the Three Crowns trilogy put together.
Yes.
Previous to that, much bigger than anything else. There's a lot here, which is a joy. That's awesome. I was really excited because even though chugging it was a little bit difficult on both of us, I think, it was, and that's just because we're old.
Yeah.
That's just sitting, being difficult. But it's pretty joyous to have basically another game in the series, without, and maybe expecting, a short, expecting, the Bloodborne DLC.
Right. I expected what they told us to expect.
Yes, because they lied.
They lied.
One of the things is they lied. And they talked about it, Miyazaki talked about it not being a lie. He's like, well, when we said Limgrave, we were thinking about how we approached Limgrave and everything the first time when we were getting in is very deep. And it's like, no, that's, people on this website will fucking say anything. That you cannot honestly believe that, my man. It's 4 Limgraves stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
It's multiple Limgraves. Huge. Bigger than you think. Keeps going. Tons of secret areas. Tons of stuff. There is so much to do.
Yeah.
In it.
And basically nothing repeats is the thing here. Even down to the kind of mini dungeons that you get. There are new ones of those. And by new ones of those, I don't just mean here are tunnels, here are caves, here are catacombs. Catacombs return.
Yes.
But there are I think 2 new biome types that are brought back each of them with kind of new gimmicks in addition, and new rewards, new kinds of enemies that are found in them, right?
They're better. They're upgraded in some ways, this DLC, in some ways not. But in some ways, the DLC is a concentrated dose of Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Like all of the old bosses that are repeated, you might see one.
Yeah.
But just one, you know? And instead of having tons of caves and mines that I was grateful to have them. I like them. And that's something I really love about my first playthrough of Elden Ring.
Yeah.
When I've replayed it, I've liked them less because there's less surprise involved. Now there's only a few of those kind of things, but they're big. They're big and they have, they're basically like, half legacy dungeon kind of things. And they have a gimmick. There are in Elden Ring, a game I love, I would be hard pressed to say like no two caves are basically the same.
Yeah.
Like, of course, like the mines, a couple mines are basically the same. A couple, maybe 3 or 4, right? I think sometimes people exaggerate this as a problem.
Yes.
But it's not untrue as a thing that happens, right? No longer.
Yeah.
Every time I went into a catacomb, that catacomb had something to mark it different. Every time I went to a jail, anytime I went into a cave, something was different.
Yeah.
And there are fewer of them, but they're so much better and more interesting in this, which kind of lends to that feeling of content. Like in terms of space, you can kind of see what Miyazaki is talking about just in terms of like footprint.
Yeah.
But in terms of like depth, both in terms of vertical layers and just the ideas on display and the uniqueness of these little diverticula, it's very concentrated as it goes.
It's concentrated and covers kind of a wide breadth of different things that end up being refinements. You can really see the work that they did in between, kind of picking and choosing things that they wanted to expand upon.
Yes. Yeah. That's excellent. That was a genuine surprise and very pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect there.
And when we say big, like you will get to the end of one of these dungeons and then you'll just like pop open the map and you will see like, oh, I'm like halfway across this like little region. What the fuck? I've covered that much horizontal distance somehow.
There's a dungeon that just is a second dungeon.
Yeah.
Like just opens up into a back dungeon. Basically, that could be its own thing.
Yeah.
Tons of absolutely like just hidden regions and stuff. And we'll talk about that kind of thing. But one of the things that is a first impression I have that is about this is that one of the things I think From wanted to do was scale up the difficulty and complexity of both fighting and bosses and exploration rather. Exploring in this is harder than it was in the first one. It is harder to get to things.
Yeah.
Things are more hidden. It's also better.
Oh my God. I love it so much.
The
sense of discovery.
It's sublime.
The fact that like to get to a different region, it is not just I push straight out at the border, right? Like doing that will get you to an overlook, maybe.
Yep.
Right.
Almost always an overlook or a cliff, or a reverse overlook. And like, oh shit, I have to get up there.
Yeah.
That happens notably once in the Elden Ring main game.
Right.
We all know where it's at. It's the southwest corner of Liurnia. This happens constantly.
Yeah.
In this, it is a puzzle to traverse in addition to the puzzles you find while traversing.
Yeah.
And that is pig and shit material to me. I'm the pig. And in this scenario, I love rolling around in shit. The shit is exploration.
Yeah.
Is how this metaphor works.
You have to chew thoroughly and carefully. Space is not meant for you to just get across, right?
Yes.
Every single bit of topography might be something that hides a thing you would not even expect them to hide. Again, like entire optional regions. So much of this DLC is optional. There are 10 remembrance bosses and only 4 of them are required to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, it's very confident that way.
Yes.
Right. Like that's something we've always talked about on the show. Painted World of Ariamis vibes, like let's hide your light. Right. Like let's take something that is incredible, that is a showcase, and make it so you don't necessarily get it. You have to find it. You have to earn it. Really value that. The other thing it does that plays into that is it's not just the genuine joy of exploration, but incredibly story critical things happen in hidden margins, both to the story of the DLC and the main story. in a way that FromSoft has not fucked with before.
Yeah.
One of the things about this DLC that surprised me is this answers questions. You had a tweet about it, and you're right about this, where it's like, if this is your first rodeo with From DLC, don't expect things to get paid off.
Yeah.
We were all waiting for, the church in Dark Souls 3 DLC.
Yeah.
The Londor ruins or what have you. I can't remember what like the Dark Londor. I can't remember right this second. It's been a long time. We all thought like, oh, this is sure what's going to do. And they're like, nope, it's snow. And then a little bit of Dark Souls 2 in a pit. And then, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
This one, you go and find stuff and it answers questions that I genuinely had about the main game that I had chalked up as like mysteries.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't get to know that. And that's okay. But then they came up with cool, satisfying answers and hid the fuck out of them.
Yep.
That's great.
It's so rewarding. And like a lot of that. So, they have said, like the story in this, it's not necessarily new material. It is stuff that didn't work its way into the main game, specifically from George R.R. Martin's brief, right?
Yes.
Or whatever he did. And now that this is out, I really hope we get to see that. Like, I understand why they would not have delivered on that if there was stuff they were planning on using again. But I hope I hope that now that this is here, we get to see that information in some form or fashion. Right?
I don't think that George R. R. Martin deserves most of the credit for any of this. Right? Like it's a whole video game. At the same time, I think the erasure of him is a little frustrating, where people are like, oh, this is this DLC. The story of this is really George R. R. Martin. To a ludicrous degree and possibly derogatorily. One of the things is that, I just beat it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to be spoiler free. Now that I can dive into discussion around the story, I am like dreading the discourse on a level that like I did not think was possible.
It
goes places.
It's going to be real hairy once the guardrails go off and people are free to talk about some of the revelations that are happening here. Yeah.
It gets into some stuff. And that's going to be interesting and fun, and just like really not what I think people were expecting.
No.
It's going to take a lot of people's preconceived notions about characters from the main game and twist them.
Yeah.
In major ways, like in a way that doesn't feel superfluous to the story. It feels necessary to understanding the story of Elden Ring. It recontextualizes like everything.
Yeah.
Contrasting it with the Bloodborne DLC is really interesting because that had a lot of revelations, but that always frustrated me because it made the story like, oh, we found our outer gods in two places. Like it doesn't feel rare if you find them digging the earth and one just washes up on the beach.
Right.
It offered satisfying, answers for Lady Maria and such, and things would happen with that, but it wasn't for the grand cosmology. It felt a little bit weird. This is doing what I want a late story revelation or DLC to do, which is add new context to things I already know. And it's great at that.
Yeah, and without doing too much of a spoiler, the ways that things are recontextualized are almost always completely tragic. Right?
Oh yeah, it's a sad story.
Yeah.
Nobody, you spend the whole time in Elden Ring being like, none of these people are good guys. But some of them are okay. No.
Yeah.
Not even a little. This is where you learn that there's one half of one person who's okay. And they don't get a good end.
Nope.
It's not, well, the other thing I think this really benefits from, in terms of story stuff, before we kind of like move on from that I can say without spoiling, is that the NPCs in this all relate to this part of the story in a way that's interesting, rather than having all of the NPCs kind of represent a general faction or parts of a faction that was so huge in Elden Ring. So Elden Ring, I like the NPCs in Elden Ring. I think that it has a messier NPC system.
Yeah.
Like the characters don't really know each other. They're not doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're all just kind of hanging out. Every once in a while, someone will be like, "Oh man, the dung eater, that guy sucks." But like, you never get to see what like, Gold Mask thinks of the dung eater.
Right.
It doesn't feel like a real world with people who are invested in the same things in some way. Whereas this one does.
Yes.
The crew we meet are all united in a purpose, the same purpose we are, which is shades of the main game. You know, like all these tarnished, like that's the opening of Elden Ring is showing us all our compatriots going out, except they're active participants and they interface with each other. It's a lot stronger in that respect, I think.
Yeah. I love our fucked up little crew quite a bit. And, you know, as a bit of a warning to people, it is very, very easy to fuck up their quest lines.
Too fucked up. Too easy.
Too easy.
Like this is a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is a thing that gives you there's a point of no return that is not marked that will advance tons of quest lines. And that's it for them. I thought it was cool that even despite walking into that, because I was going into the spoiler free, I still managed to complete a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't get rid of all of them, but I did not get the endings for everybody I wanted.
Right.
In this.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yep. So go in prepared to be a little bit frustrated by that if you are not following a guide, I would say.
Yeah.
You will get endings for them. It is just going to, you know, it's not going to shake out the way you want.
Yeah. And it is still dramatically satisfying.
Yes.
You know, like it feels a little arbitrary. You know, how they advance to me.
Yes. I don't know that I have much more to say about the story stuff.
No, not without getting into stuff.
Yeah.
And even that, once we start the episode, we're going to have to be a little ginger. Some people in the Patreon were asking about the spoiler wall. There will be one, but I encourage you to play and play ahead if you can.
Yeah.
If you're interested in this, you probably already started it. If you're hearing this though, give it a start. You know, budget your time for it because it's hard.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a moment. But we're not going to just throw spoilers to the wind, but we also need to be able to talk about full context at some point, you know? So it's been a thing we've been trying to thread the needle on over and over. We do our best. Some people are not satisfied with our approach. Some people wish we'd go either way with it. That's fine.
Yeah.
We're just trying. But just know, I think you'll benefit from having more context for listening to the episodes.
I'm talking about a corner case within a corner case here, but because this is not post-game content and it is something that you can kind of stumble into before you've explored everything in the main game, what I will also say is maybe if you haven't beaten Elden Ring at this, you know, by this point that you're listening to this, it's like, oh, I went to the DLC, so I'm listening to the DLC episodes as I'm along. It is impossible to talk about what is important in this DLC without talking about the way that it fits in, matches to, fills up kind of blind spots and
some
complements. Yeah, you know, like big revelations that only happen from the very ending, right?
It's also, another thing just structurally about this that's weird is this is I think the most explicitly endgame DLC they've done. You can access it before the end game technically, but you access it through a pretty late game boss, like one that is typically part of the end game run-ups.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, both, and this again segues into difficulty stuff, you are 1,000% meant to be doing this right before you beat Elden Ring.
Yeah.
If not like New Game Plus. You are not supposed to be doing this as soon as it's available. Like once you know it, you can pop in and grab a weapon or something, but this is absolutely end game content. This would be after the end boss.
Yeah.
If there was a way to make that happen.
Yeah. Let's talk about that that difficulty.
Yeah. The rowdy subject, the red hot topic.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'm not like incredibly frustrated by it. Like, you know, like, oh my gosh, there's a very annoying part of this discourse, you know, the review bomby kind of, you know, suddenly we're going to switch from saying that you're not a real fan if you're not super good at this to, oh, if you're super good at this, you have no life kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like the characters, the culture war kind of part of this is very annoying. Also, there's not an awful lot of nuance to it, which is like, you know, people who are saying, no, it's not difficult at all, gets down to like saying, oh, all you have to do is engage with the systems and it's there.
Just use a kukri.
Yeah, just use a kukri to kind of fall back to our shorthand on that. I also do not think that is correct.
Well, it's a thought terminating cliche. It kills conversation where something cannot be possibly made better.
Right.
For people who are saying that, like the idea that there is a way to get past something and I got past it means to some folk there is no room or need for discussion about ways that it might be more elegant to do that, or it might be better designed.
Yeah.
To make that not necessarily, it's not even just like, you can say easy. What if you just hard in different ways?
Yeah.
As a thing. Like, I do think the DLC in terms of bosses is harder than I want it to be.
Yeah.
I got through it. But the way I had to get through it was a little fantasy killing. Having to respec to do something that I knew would work.
Yeah.
Took me out of my character. And I felt like I had no other option.
I do not know how anybody could beat this as a caster, Gary.
Yo, yeah. Like, good Lord. Without a tank summon of some kind.
Yeah.
And like those tools are in the game. That's great. But it doesn't, maybe that's not how you want to play. Like, it's continuum the way that difficulty is scaled up for bosses in this game specifically. Not in terms of exploration and dungeoneering and stuff. I think all that stuff is actually balanced pretty well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. There are tough enemies on the field. There are tough enemies in the castle. That's fine.
When you first enter this DLC, the first thing that you're going to run into will two-shot you. And you have to find a way around it. Like, everybody gets the welcome wagon from
the tree sentinel.
Yes. Yeah.
It's literally the tree sentinel. Like, they're doing the exact same thing. Like, go look around, you know? But the bosses themselves, I think for me, I don't like having to kill my fantasy for doing that, or, the alternative, just try over and over and over.
Yeah.
I also think I'm getting pretty bored with this approach. I don't think just more aggression and fewer openings is very interesting.
Yeah. We've been saying this in some form or fashion since the Bloodborne DLC.
Yes. And it's still true, and they kept up with it, right? And the thing that's frustrating about the discourse around this is there's no room for that point. It's either just a difficulty slider, like, oh, you're weak, or, oh, it's fucked up. And it's like, no, you could also want something like different. Every single boss in this, and I can say that basically without exaggeration, being, maybe, a couple exceptions, being absolutely sell down Beavis build.
Yeah.
Like, everything being hyper aggressive, openings every 20 seconds at best, after a bunch of perfect dodging. Any opening being a thing where you have to choose whether to heal or attack. Openings where you have enough time to get in one attack, but not enough time to heal. Like, because the animation takes slightly longer than that. Every final hit of a combo doing an AoE a second later. Every boss trying to trick you with delayed hits. It's like, do you remember when delayed hits was a boss concept?
Oh, with Fume Knight. Yeah. And I was delighted. I loved it.
Yeah. It was cool. You had to learn it. Now it's every boss. And I'm really bored by that. It doesn't, and this is strictly mechanically, and it doesn't mean there aren't boss fights I like as a fight. I just think that I wish that there was a way to be like, it's a little bit more frustrating than I want it to be, but it's the boredom aspect of that adds a not satisfying rider once I get through it, because I just ended up like feeling lucky or trying it enough times or having to respec my build to do it because my build wasn't appropriate for it. Like, it's getting more prescriptive. Yeah. And one of the big strengths of Elden Ring is that it was one of the least prescriptive games they did. But if every boss is Millennia or Millennia Plus, it's very prescriptive.
Yeah. I was playing this and I got about halfway through, based on my map exploration. And the only thing that I kept on thinking was, where's Bumpo's House of Tricks?
Yeah.
Right? Like that tweet that is like, oh, there are an X number of kinds of bosses in Soulsborne games, which are like, Tragic Knight, big beast thing, and then Bumpo's House of Tricks. Gimmick fight.
No Bumpo.
Right? No Bumpo.
Even Sekiro had a Bumpo. Yeah. We had the folding screen monkeys. We're Bumpo-less. Repeat, Bumpo-less. There's kind of a Bumpo mini boss you fight a little bit. Yeah. That's really good. But in terms of the big bosses, they're all big beast or hyper aggressive swordsmen. Yeah. And some of them are pretty good. Yeah. Even within that dichotomy, but I want a more well-rounded diet.
Yes.
And one of the things we talk about this the whole time, and it's a thing, if this is going to bug you, it's good for you to know.
Yeah.
Right? I think because this bothered me the whole DLC. One of the things when people think back to like Storm King, Demon Souls bosses, they're like, oh, that was, there's kind of two people who are like that. There are people who think back on that. You can think back like, oh, that's too easy. and you can think, oh, that was fucking sick.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
the fantasy of that was incredible. It was really creative. It was really weird. It had like this great sense of dread. It was very artful in ways that were not just wireframe movesets, of attack timings and windows and memorizing which hit had delays and which combos could turn into 4-hit combos, but might end after 1 hit. They used to there'd just be a wider breadth of things they would do.
Yeah.
And it's my least favorite thing about the DLC, which I love.
Yes.
Like I love this DLC. I will play it again. I'm looking forward to playing with the show. I think it's great.
Let me repeat that. Gary hates Shadow of the Erdtree.
I love Shadow of the Erdtree. I played it basically in 1 week in 40 hours.
Yeah.
Like it was my full-time job because it was my full-time job during that, which like I'm married and there was a weekend in there. I didn't do anything else really. I love this. Yeah. My least favorite parts are getting up to a master swordsman, seeing, oh, it's this shit again.
Yeah.
It's not like that shit is bad. I can enjoy that shit from time to time. I don't enjoy it every time.
And that sameness is a big problem. So it is a sameness, which is incredibly long combos, no openings, and half of the combos end in an AoE spam that is meant to brush you back and keep you away. Right.
That a lot of times with its own little delay.
Right.
Like, the AoE does a thing and then you're like, okay, cool. I dodged it. And then just another one. And like, I can memorize that for people like, oh, learn the fight. Yeah. Like I understand. Yeah. Like I can attach a visual animation to a timing. I understand how to do that. It's just, how much do I want to do it? Yeah. It's just, and the answer for some people is unlimited, right?
Yeah.
Like we're in the Slack, people online, everything. There are people like, oh, this is the best set of bosses they've ever done. That's fine. I want people to know that's not the perspective, at least I'm coming to with this. Yeah. And that, I respect, honorable people can differ. Yeah. I disagree on that.
We're very consistent with this, I think, and that works to our benefit, right? Just because we can keep hitting on it. Some people will call it harping, but I'm happy that
they keep doing it.
They keep doing it. God damn it! I'm a novelty hound, and like yes, individual. Okay, they have a complexity addiction. All right, this is a thing that can happen. We were talking about this absolutely in Sekiro as well, but I want to give you something by the numbers. Okay. So Gwyn, how many moves do you think Gwyn, the final boss of Dark Souls 1, has? Just on the wiki, listed out like moves that it can do.
I'm going to say 7.
8. Gwyn has 8.
Pretty close.
Okay. How many do you think Margit has? The first big boss that people are going to run into in base Elden Ring.
16?
Yes, 16.
Okay.
Okay. How many moves does the Nameless King, the pain in the ass challenge boss, of Dark Souls 3? How many moves?
We're not counting the dragon, right? Because it's double whatever this is, because it's 2 bosses.
So it's counting both. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. 22.
17.
Okay.
Right. And each of these bosses, every single one of them has two phases where they are substantially different from each other. Right. So I don't think that is necessarily an unfair comparison. I think that increasing the difficulty of these things on the spectrum of everything the AI has just increasingly more things to choose from. There's not terribly much blood left in that stone for them to get out that I want to see them get out.
No. We don't know the number of moves that the final boss of the DLC has because they're still calculating them.
Yes.
We got those eggheads and NASA working on it because it's effectively infinite. Another thing that it ties into this that I read in an article that I agreed with, I was surprised to find myself agreeing with, this was somebody who wrote, I would want to give them credit. I think it might be the website, The Gamer.
Okay.
One of the silliest website games, The Gamer. I think it's them. And they wrote an opinion piece. Like the review for the Shadow of the Erdtree was like a 10 out of 10. Mm-hmm. This is the person who did all the guides, and they did it pre-release. So they didn't have a summoning pool. They basically soloed everything, got through it. And they were saying, the thing I really liked was how silly it is for all of these monsters to be trying to trick us constantly with attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it really make sense for an animal to be like, gotcha, and do these little delayed hits?
Psych
kind of thing. Psych. Like it makes me see the wireframe a lot.
Yeah.
Of what's happening. It makes sense for a thinking opponent to do that. It doesn't make sense for like a giant beast to do these little psychs and to constantly do the psychs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it wouldn't evolve that way. It wouldn't be motivating. It kills the fantasy for me in
Yeah.
a way that I don't want it to. And it's worth talking about with these bosses, at least for myself, and I think I'm speaking for you. We're just talking about mechanically, like the flavor of the bosses, the look of the bosses,
Immaculate.
the music of the bosses,
Yeah.
immaculate. The vibe is there. It's passing the vibe check.
Mm-hmm.
It's just everyone's the same.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is another escalating challenge of more moves with less downtime.
And base game Elden Ring doesn't fall into that.
No, like
It's very
post-game
noticeable.
Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It's Millennia that does that, and a little bit at the end of the game, which is fine because it's the end of the game.
Yeah.
Here, the first major boss you fight starts with it, and then the second major boss you fight, we're off to the fucking races.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we're just Millennia 2
Yeah.
as a thing. And like, that's fine. Again, if you like it, it's cool.
People want that. Yeah.
People want it. I'm a little bored with it, and I miss a more diverse From.
I can only speak to my tastes, which is the complexity that I want, and the interest in an encounter comes from the entire design around it, as opposed to Final Destination. We're in this big flat arena, and it is you matching wits and blades with this particular thing.
Yes.
Here they don't really have anything that is, the Anor Londo rafters, right?
Yes.
Where you're fighting really basic stuff. It's things that you were fighting at the beginning of the game, really, but it is difficult because of its context, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, but there's not, and we get like combat and exploration are getting more divorced than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
In like a Cybertruck.
Yeah.
It is more divorced than you could ever expect. It is just like that is kind of what's happening. The integration is going down.
Yeah.
And it's not like I want to fight fucking Margit on the rafters.
No.
Like I want to fight something normal on the rafters because that was interesting.
Yeah.
The nice thing about this and the way it ties back into positiveness is because the DLC is so deep and so big, you bounce off and you bounce into something interesting.
It explicitly wants you to do that. And I think that is a source of a lot of people's frustration is they're trying to play it like a boss rush. And it is not meant for that.
It's, and there are people who are also complaining about having all this exploration to do, which is also jokerifying to read about. Because it's just like people come to games for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like to put this in context, the bounce off thing, the second major boss of the DLC was I had two major hurdles in this, the end boss and the second major boss.
Yeah.
The second major boss, I bounced off of 3 times because I kept thinking, okay, I've done everything. I got to go back and fight him.
Yeah.
Each time I hadn't done everything.
Nope.
I just started looking around and find a whole other biome, sometimes with other remembrance bosses at the end of that I enjoyed. That kept happening.
Yep.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Like Elden Ring, the main game, you get to a certain point though where you're just funneled through the super bosses at the end because you have done everything, and like it just really puts that in kind of stark contrast.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that's going to come down to taste. I'm no longer like just bouncing off a boss all day. It's not fun for me.
Yeah.
I like walking away from challenges in this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like, this is fine. I don't want to just do this over and over.
Yeah.
It's not cool to me. Not taking anything away from anybody, but it's probably not going to be a huge focus of the season because to us, it is not the most interesting thing about it.
Right.
I'll say right here, like I'd summon for fucking everything.
Oh God.
I also respect into degeneracy, at the start of the DLC.
Mm-hmm.
I made the tankiest motherfucker that I've ever made in a game.
Oh, I have never rolled like this in any of the From games.
No.
Yeah.
No. And it felt mandatory, which is the part that feels bad.
Yes.
Like it didn't feel like a lark.
Yeah. No real experimentation with it. I just found it worked, and then it was a big bludgeon that I used for everything.
Yes.
That is not necessarily as satisfying to me, and also it devalued a lot of the rewards, which are all these new item types and things like that. It's like, boy, I love these. The hand and foot wraps, right? The martial arts stuff. Yeah. Man, I would really love to fight a boss with this. Fucking can't.
No, if you try, you die in one hit. or 2 hits at most, because it's, and you had to get so close, which you can't really do. And they don't stagger, which you need.
Yeah.
All that stuff is really cool. And I think it's for New Game Plus.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like I am going to take this character that I beat the DLC with, bring them into New Game Plus, and then my play along for the show, I'm going to start another one. The New Game Plus character, I came out of this with like 4 awesome build ideas.
Yeah.
It's really good for supporting that stuff. It's just, they don't, the tax, like they give you a lot of larval tiers to respec and they give you tons of upgrade materials, which is great. The tax of doing it and then having it not work
is a bummer.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Like what I would have done if I did this, and this is again lessons rolled from, which would be a cool maybe a topic for an episode at some point. Like, what do we want to have back? One of the first things they did in the Sunken Crown DLC is you started finding weapons that were upgraded.
Yep.
If you recall that, everything in this DLC starting at +7 or 8 would have been fine.
Yeah.
Like, make it not take very many upgrade materials to upgrade, lower a couple of the stat requirements because people aren't going to be using these right at the beginning of the game, and just let people experiment with viable things as opposed to having to be like, I can make this work, but it's going to fucking suck.
Yeah.
Or I can wait until New Game Plus, So,
yeah.
Got anything else? That might be for what's first impressions that I can think of.
Yeah. All of that difficulty talk as well is separate and aside from talking about the advancement system that is in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about when we do kind of our 101 episode for it, because I want to dig into it and because the stats for it are changing.
Yes.
Like we're getting mid-scholared already. The version of this we played had a less effective advancement system than the version you are likely to play. And that's also really weird. It's super awkward. Like it's a weird fit. It makes this whole thing like a new game, basically.
Yeah.
Like you have this second upgrade system that I think part of the reason why people are frustrated when they want a boss rush is that it requires exploration.
Yes.
They're rewarding exploration in levels in a way they've never done.
Yeah.
In terms of power up, rather.
I ultimately liked the effect on my first time through. I do not know how much I'm going to enjoy it on a second.
You keep them in New Game Plus.
Yeah.
It's something I read. I haven't tried that yet, but that's really good. So if you do decide to take it in New Game Plus, the New Game Plus, New Game Plus scaling, if you have all of those upgrades, probably isn't going to make that big of a difference.
Yeah.
I think. And you don't have to go collect them all again.
Yeah.
Which is good.
That's good. But for the purpose of the show, I can't go through on a New Game Plus.
Yes. Yeah. We'd have to play through the game. Again, and that's a lot to ask. So, same.
No. I'm just saying if I go through on a New Game Plus, there are pickups that I normally would find and make a note of to say, hey, this is the reward for having done all this. That it's not going to be there when I'm playing through to make the notes. Yeah, my past self got it. It's a zapping system, but with me, not Leon.
Self-zapping.
Yeah. So regardless. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that we got that in there to make sure that we didn't get people saying, "Oh, these MF
didn't know about it."
Yeah, these MFers didn't
pick up the fragments. I was 17. Level fragment 17 at the end.
Yeah, ended at 19, baby.
Out of 20, pretty good, right? If you're listening to this and you're going to play, keep track of the ones you get.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it will be a pain to try to track down the ones you don't have.
Yeah.
Which I tried to do and did not successfully do.
Treat it like getting heart containers in a mid-series Zelda game.
Except you need them.
Yes.
Like in a mid-series Zelda game, you get some heart containers, you're basically golden. You need a lot of them.
Yeah.
In this, I would say. And
they're the only thing that's stopping you from getting two-shot by everything, including, just regular jobbers on the map.
Absolutely. Like hollow motherfuckers can two-shot you when you first step into this. The one thing, I guess this counts as a first impression. I know we're coming up on time, but one of the things I liked about that was it supported my style of play.
Yeah.
It's very active right now. So I was looking at a lot of messages and bloodstains and I was just like, oh, everyone plays a lot less cautiously than I do.
Yep.
Like every single bloodstain is somebody making a really stupid mistake that I wouldn't make. And I'm garbage at the bosses. I'm not bragging. There are things I'm super bad at, but you have to play this cautiously and it rewards it a lot.
It does.
And if you're leaving messages, stop being a fuckboy.
Yeah.
Somebody on Blue Sky was like, you're still doing that, huh? From Arrested Development. That's what I thought that, 70 times a minute
Uh-huh.
playing through this. You're still doing that, huh?
Yeah. Stop it with the why is it dung? Stop it with jump here. That's been old since Demon's Souls.
It's extremely old.
Yeah.
Nobody is impressed when you put why is it always weak foe after a hard boss.
Mm-hmm.
If you put summoning, therefore pathetic sort, with pointing down before a fight, why are you throwing an antagonism grenade into Stranger's World for no reason?
What is
How old are you? Grow up.
What is the purpose of you if you do that?
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah.
And just secret wall here. And then there's the person who puts liar there, which like kind of helps, but doesn't really, because I still have to read, like I'm still reading that other one first. It's still stopping. Just help.
Yeah, just help.
Why wouldn't you want to just help?
This is the first time I've really because it's the first time I've really engaged with leaving helpful messages.
Me too. And they were bangers. I was getting healed off them constantly.
Oh yeah.
Like, and if you're not doing this shit, do not mark down, do not vote down garbage messages. Yeah. That's what they want.
Yes.
Complain about them on a podcast. Start a podcast. Like 12 years ago, and then complain about it. And that's how you get your revenge.
and stop it with the messages that are casual misogyny. We know what you're saying when you use horse.
Yeah. We know. It should be about heroin.
Yeah.
Like,
please,
you lame wad. Like, if you're going to talk about horse, slam dance with Mr. Brownstone.
Yeah.
Don't give me this shit. Cocaine,
the needle,
heroin.
And the damage done. All right.
Yeah. Don't be gross. It's not that fingering the corpses of old dead people, their buttholes specifically, is not that cool. I don't know is this a Gen Z thing? Is this Skibbity? Like, is it Skibbity fingering dead old men's butts?
That's what Skibbity means.
This is Riz. It is Riz to finger an old dead man's butt. The joke just, like, if you see somebody else make the joke, if you've ever seen somebody else make the joke, don't make the joke.
Yeah.
In Elden Ring messages.
Yeah. So that is our PSA. And if you see messages left by Bonfireside Cole, please rate them up. I'm not playing this anymore right now, but keep them there.
I think my guy's name is Smashulon. Yeah. And I only did a couple things, but they were two very helpful messages.
Yes.
Like, figured something out, and it was like, I wish I had seen this. And this, I don't want to give no credit to people who are doing good messages. Like, I would say half the big time secrets on this I wouldn't have found.
Yeah.
Without messages. Like, Try Gesture is, whoever's throwing that out there is a saint. Yeah. So anywho, we appreciate you. We're going to be back in a couple weeks.
To be determined, I would say.
To be determined.
Couple weeks is probably a good estimate, but yeah.
Yeah. Could be longer. It depends on how long it takes to map out and get all this stuff done. It's the layout stuff that we like so much does make it difficult.
Yes.
To figure out how to structure it. So we're working on that. But we're looking forward to being back. We appreciate you. Are we going to put this out on the free feed?
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
If you are familiar with us, thank you. If you're not, though, we're Bonfireside Chat. If you want to hear most of the Elden Ring series, we put out a couple free episodes. And the rest of this series, that's for patrons. It is $5 a month. It gets you so much stuff. Yeah. You get this, you get Real Lich Hours, which is our show on Baldur's Gate 3. You get Abject Suffering episodes. You get our show about horror movies. You get all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And you get the back catalog. So if you want to play this DLC but don't want to replay Elden Ring, you can slam a listen of the Elden Ring season of the show and get the effect by proximity. Like, just do it while you're exercising or washing the dishes or something.
Yeah. And because you have the back catalog, it's only getting more valuable. So yeah.
And if you already are a patron, the only thing you can really do is tell your friends if you think they'd like us.
Spread around that free episode pack that we put out here recently.
Yeah. And for Bonfireside Chat specifically, the other free episodes are good too.
Yes.
The ones that cover the early Limgrave stuff, because if somebody's new to Elden Ring, that's probably where they're at. And that's about it.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you. We're looking forward to being back. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Yes.
Not just for the show, but also with my friend Cole.
Yeah.
Like, it's been fun going back and forth, the limited degree we did. A lot of very, like, did you get to fucking this? Feeling, which is really fun. Like, that's one of the best feelings in games, to like look to your friend and be like, holy shit.
Oh,
you see this? And be like, oh yeah. And just like It's a warm blanket.
To ask in very vague terms, have you seen this thing, so as not to spoil it if they haven't?
And then the sense of relief when they have, and you can just be like, yeah, like it's real good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
So, thanks everybody.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon